kid melts down every single time you mention writing, this video is for you. I have three boys who all struggle with something different in regards to writing. One moves really fast and turns in incomplete, messy work. Another who freezes at a white sheet of paper. And then the other one, he is melting down before we've even gotten started. And one of the curriculums that have helped me is this Here to Help Learning Essay Writing. And this one curriculum finally gave the tools I needed to support my boys in all of their individual learning journeys. I want you to stick with me to the end of this video because by the end of it, you'll know the three most common writing struggles, why writing feels harder than the other subjects, and exactly how I've adapted this curriculum for upper, elementary, middle school, and even my ninth grader so that you can tailor it for your kids too. Chances are that one of my boys sounds similar to your child, so I want you to drop it in the comments as we go along. Which one resonates with your family the most? Just know you're definitely not alone. And if we haven't met before, my name is Amanda Schenkenberger. I am a second generation homeschooler, homeschool coach, mom to four boys, and writing was one of my hardest subjects growing up homeschool. And I knew early on that I was going to be very hands-on and intentional as I walked my own children through language arts. So let me introduce you quickly to my three very different learners, and then I'll show you exactly how I use this curriculum to support each of them and how you can adapt it as a homeschool mom. So my oldest is the one who rushes through and sometimes turns in sloppy work. And honestly, this has been a theme for a lot of his life. We're always reminding him to slow down, look around, and think about what you're doing. And he is a super fast thinker. Like he's really brilliant, but his brain moves so quickly that his work doesn't always match his ability. The challenge for him hasn't been whether he can do it. It's about learning how to slow his mind down enough to do it with excellence. So with him, I'm focusing on accountability and reminders because he doesn't need me to teach him more content. He needs me to walk alongside him and make sure he's slowing down enough to show what he's actually capable of. Now, my freeze up kid is really very thoughtful. He notices little things, moves more slowly, and usually is a pretty quiet kind of guy. Unless he's really upset, his self expression is just real low key. Part of why he freezes is perfectionism. He doesn't want to get it wrong. And paired with his quiet personality, this is a really tough combo. He might have a great idea, but instead of saying it out loud, he will keep it to himself. So getting him started is half the battle, and then giving him time to work it out is the other half. He is a classic middle kid stuck between two big talkers and one high needs brother. So speaking for him has never really come naturally. A lot of times we're having to tell his brothers to not speak for him. And I'll be honest, the patience part of waiting for him to come up with his ideas and then express them has been really hard for me. I'm sitting there in silence while he's figuring things out in his head, and I feel pulled in a million different directions. And every part of me wants to rush him. But if I do, I'm robbing him of the chance to find his own words. And what he needs most is the space to connect his thoughts, even if it takes a while. So my job is to sit quiet, as uncomfortable as that feels, and let him grow into it. Now, son number three is the one who gets easily overwhelmed, and a lot of our schoolwork really does end in tears. He really struggles with struggling. And if something feels hard, he shuts down pretty fast. So for him, we're taking a lot of 5-minute breaks, we're snuggling and talking through the steps of school every single day. And he needs much more of my attention and hand holding than his brothers did at this age. And as exhausting as that can be, I know it's important to help him find a way through the hard moments. What he needs to learn is that the struggle is normal, and he's capable of figuring things out if he just gives himself the time and space to do it. I'll also mention that this kiddo is the one that likely has ADHD and who deals with a lot of anxiety for a boy his age. And with him, it isn't the lack of ideas or the lack of spitting out ideas. He invents stories like nobody's business. The real challenge is the emotional side of putting those stories on paper. So for us, writing is less about perfect sentences and more about learning how to walk through hard things. Helping him build emotional resilience is every bit as important as the word he writes. So those are my very different learners, a rusher, a freezer, and a melter downer. And maybe your child looks like one of mine, or maybe they've got their own version of the same struggles. But here's the thing. Writing is just plain hard for a lot of kids. And it's not because they're lazy or behind, it's because writing is one of the most complicated things we can ask our brains to do. And once I understood that, it made so much more sense why my boys struggled the way they did. Because writing isn't like math, where you solve one problem at a time, or with reading, where you follow along until the words end on the page. Writing pulls together a lot of different brain processes all at once. So I want you to think of it like this: your kiddo is trying to juggle while writing a unicycle. Right? They've got to balance ideas, vocabulary, spelling, grammar, and handwriting all at the same time. And if even one ball drops, the whole process feels like it's falling apart. So, what's really happening in their brain is one, they have to come up with an idea. Two, they have to turn ideas into sentences in their head, then remember how to spell those words and organize those sentences so that they make sense, and then actually get it all down on a piece of paper neatly. That's a lot for any kid. And even strong readers, because I have very strong readers. For these strong readers, when it's time to write, they can freeze because their working memory gets overloaded with too many tasks. So here's a little statistic that might put you at ease. The nation's report card, NAEP, consistently shows that well under half of students reach proficiency in writing by middle school. So like more than half of kids are not proficient at writing in middle school. So if your child's wrestling with it, they are not alone. For some kids, the ideas are there, but the words get stuck. For others, the thoughts come so quickly that they rush ahead and they forget steps. And for kids who are easily overwhelmed, it can feel like too much pressure and it leads to meltdowns. That's why writing often needs more hand holding than other subjects. It's not that your child is behind, it's that their brain is still learning how to coordinate all of those pieces together. And with the right support and a step by step process, writing becomes a lot less scary. All right, let's take a quick tour through Here to Help Learning essay writing, and I'll show you how we actually are using it in our homeschool. What I want to say up front is don't use the online curriculum at all. She's got online videos, and I haven't ever been able to figure out how to access them, so I don't. What I use is the process she lays out in the book for writing an essay and the themes she's picked to guide the different types of writing. For example, my boys last year not only wrote a how to essay, but they also wrote a play and made an allegory and wrote poetry. Now, when you open the book at first, it might seem like a lot because she includes a lot of tools in here, but I don't want that to overwhelm you. Looking at these tools, it's optional, and they're really designed to give you an extra support with grammar, editing, and review. But here's what I focus on with my kids. One, we really look at this writing process. And the author breaks it down into 9 steps. This takes my kids from brainstorming to organizing all the way through rough draft to final draft. We also like to use these writing warm ups, which are quick creative stories that get their brain juices flowing. We also pay attention to the literary techniques, talking about things like similes, metaphors, and even hyperbole. These are little tools they can practice using and infusing their writing to make it even better. And then, of course, the writing projects, the big assignment where everything begins to come together. Now, I love how simple and reusable the process is for writing an essay. Because once you know the steps, you can apply it to any writing project. For example, right now we're working on the theme, It Happened to Me. My oldest is writing about breaking his ankle. My second is writing about his 10th birthday trip. And with my youngest story about spreading his grandma's ashes while camping, we were talking about mood and how the mood of his story is actually bittersweet. And that brought up a new word for him and a new concept of how, spreading grandma's ashes in our first camping trip without her is really sad, but she would also be really happy that you're playing with all of your cousins. That would make her very joyful, and how that whole experience is bittersweet. So these writing projects aren't just school assignments. They're discovery of our children's soul sometimes through writing. So I really encourage you not to treat this as an academic process, but a connected process you get to work through with your kids. Now let's talk about warm ups. These are one of our favorites. The kiddos get a silly picture and one literary technique to use in their short story. So the writing activity is only supposed to be about 10 minutes, but honestly, only my oldest can do that in 10 minutes. Think of a short story, use the literary technique, and write it down on a piece of paper. So we have him do it in about 10 minutes. My second son, this whole process of writing a short story was taking him 45 minutes. After practicing doing a short story writing a couple of times. Now he's down to 30. Last year we got him down to about 20. So it's something he'll grow in, and that'll be a big win for us. But I do not make him try to do it in 10 minutes. Of course, my third son has no time limit on his short story because he gets really stressed out and it really makes the meltdowns bad. So instead, we just talk through his idea. He writes at his own pace and sometimes even writes a follow up story because he's enjoying the process of creation so much. One of my favorite parts of this curriculum is the rubric. The rubric. After you do the writing warm up, you can evaluate their short story to see where they're at as a writer. And it makes feedback much less subjective and it helps me really track their progress. So, our current flow is one writing warm up every week, a literary technique to practice a couple times a week. We're usually talking about what the technique is and coming up with our own examples. And then we try to do a full essay project every month or two. And this rhythm has been simple and flexible for us. Now, let's talk about those three kind of learners real quick. With my rusher, my oldest, this curriculum gives him the structure he needs to slow down. And the 9 step process forces him to pause at each stage. If we're talking about brainstorming or outlining or drafting. So he can't just fly to the finish line. The process helps keep him accountable, and I can help him check in at each step to make sure he's doing quality work, not just fast work. My freeze kid, this step by step process actually takes a lot of pressure off the blank page. Instead of write an essay, he's able to tackle one small step at a time, right? We brainstorm ideas. And then once we pick it, we write a list about that specific idea. Then we begin to plan it out through webbing. And it really breaks down writing in a way that it's less intimidating and it gives him permission to quietly sit and find his words. Then with my meltdowner, it's really not about the writing itself. I mean, this kid loves making up stories. He could go on for hours. The struggle is the emotional piece. So I use the curriculum as a gentle framework, but we take breaks and we snuggle and we talk through each part together. The goal isn't a finished essay. It's teaching him that the struggle is normal and he's capable of pushing through hard things. So before we wrap things up, I want to give you a little bit of a homeschool hack. Now, this curriculum is meant for grades 4 through 6 plus. It's not meant for high school, but I am using it for the high school level with my oldest. So the truth is, the 9-step process is so solid we can still use it for high school, but we've got a little bit of a twist. So how I use it with my oldest is we walk through the whole process together, the brainstorming, outlining, all the jazz, and then we add length to it. So he's not shooting for 5 paragraphs, he's shooting for 7 to 10 paragraphs. And then once his essay has hit the final draft, we take it to ChatGPT. Now, ChatGPT can give you a whole lot of different answers, but it's only really as good as the prompts you give it. So we tell it you are a high school English teacher, and then we ask it to evaluate the essay. Things like, are there specific literary techniques that he could add to improve it? Is there a spot that needs a clearer definition? Or where could his sentence structure be improved? We ask it to evaluate it and ask it specific questions. And this gives him feedback at a higher level, almost like having a private tutor, but without having to grade it like a high school English teacher, because I honestly would have no idea how to do that. So he's still doing all the work, but he gets concrete ideas for improvement. And honestly, it keeps him engaged because he can see his writing level up in real time. So if you were going to use this for high school, I would absolutely adapt it and supplement as well. Things like learning how to write a strong thesis, citing sources, and doing real research projects, as well as practicing literary analysis, really become an important part of the high school stage of writing. So the 9-step process still works beautifully, but those extras can help make it a complete high school program. So that's how we use Here to Help Learning essay writing. We're actually in flight 2. She's got 3 total. Officially, it is written for the 4th through 6th grade, and I think that's a sweet spot, but we also have it work really well for upper middle schoolers who want extra practice because the process is so step by step and easy to follow. If this was helpful, hit subscribe and stick with me. I'll share honest curriculum reviews and practical strategies every week to help you calm the chaos and confidently homeschool. And if you'd like to see my full list of favorite homeschool resources, just click the link below where it says curriculum favorites. And if you're like most homeschool moms, it's not just writing that feels overwhelming. It's trying to choose a curriculum for all the subjects. So if that's you, I want you to watch this video next. I break down my core 4 subjects and give you a tour of 15 different curriculum options to help you simplify your homeschool. Let's go ahead and click it. I'll see you there.